Hi, everyone. Welcome to Voices of Western, the Humans of Western podcast.
This is where we delve into everyday stories of students, staff, and faculty on campus.
Be sure to check us out on Instagram at humans_Western.
You can also find us on TikTok, YouTube, or our Facebook page, Humans of Western. My name is Zainab.
And I'm Kevin. Today's episode features David, who is a seasoned career development practitioner assisting students in navigating a path to help them fulfill their career goals.
Changing paths himself after leaving graduate school, David has a unique perspective on change and career design.
We know thinking about career can be stressful, but we found our talk with David to be comforting and insightful. We hope you enjoy.
Welcome, everyone. Today, our guest is David Feeney. Is that how you say your last name?
Yep.
Perfect. And he's a career coach at Western. So I guess to start off with the first question, how did you become a career coach?
So as we were chatting before we went on air here, I sort of stumbled into it, but I've kind of found my niche. I worked in career services and employment services in the not-for-profit sector for about 12 years before coming to Western. And I've been here at Western for, if you stitch together my various contracts that I started out with, a couple of years now that I've been doing this work. When I didn't set out to do this, and this is, I think, this is a really important element of career development. I think that people need to understand is that you don't necessarily find your niche or find your passion or find that thing that you're really keen on until you actually start to do it. And so we often say to students, students will think that they've been told they need to find their passion for a job and need to find their passion for a career. And in fact, it's not that at all, because you don't know if you're going to enjoy something or be good at something until you try it, which is why we stress those sorts of activities for students to try things out. And so for myself, I had no idea that I would be as passionate as I am about higher education and working in this field until I started to do it. And the contract, I did a short-term contract in 2019 that I thought was just literally, a way to put some money in the bank and until I found something else and fell in love with the work itself. I wouldn't have known that until I tried it. And, it wasn't something that I'd ever really thought about. I don't think I really realized that this could be a career, that this could be something that I could do. And to find this at this point in my career is just been, it's been ideal. So like I say, I did kind of stumble into it.
And what were you thinking like before that point when you started working as a career coach? I stumble on that every time.
Not a problem. I had been working for a not-for-profit. I was downsized and left with a package, very small one, but nonetheless, I left there in 2015 and decided to strike out and be an entrepreneur. And I'm an art collector, and so I decided that, well, I probably would like to sell art. And so I developed a business whereby I did pop-up events, pop-up shows, represented a number of artists in the London area and regionally. And I did that for a number of years and discovered that while I like coordinating the shows and while I like finding the artists and I have a good eye for art and all of those sorts of things, I'm not a very good salesman. And so I didn't really make much money in that venture. But I tried it because I thought that this is something that if I don't give it a shot, if I don't give it a try, I'll regret it. I thought this was going to be my next career, and it only lasted for about 4 years before I came to Western and started it as the career coach. I at times I think I know that felt that I had failed at something, but looking back and kind of reflecting on that, I know that what happened through all of that time period is that I learned a lot about myself, and I grew as a person. And I've been able to draw on a lot of those experiences now in working with students that are really struggling to find their way, or really struggling to think, okay, I have this degree, but I don't know what to do with it. And the one thing that I will say, in terms of degree and that degree to career linkage and those sorts of things, I have a graduate degree in English. And my undergraduate is from Western, also in English. And I'm not an English teacher. So I'm kind of here to say, just because you have a degree in a certain area, that does not necessarily mean that this is the direction you have to go, or that you're going to go. Career paths are quite bendy, windy. It's a winding road. It's not a straight line for a lot of people. And I think for some people that can be liberating, and some people find that really exciting to think that way. And for other people, it's kind of scary to think, but I'm doing this degree and I have to go in this direction. And so there's lots of ways of trying things out, and lots of directions to go.
One thing that like I know I definitely felt a lot of coming out of high school was this idea of like picking the right thing, not wanting to pick the wrong program or mess up.
Yep.
But I guess like throughout, now I'm near the end of my degree, and what I saw is like it actually is very common for people to end up switching. And I think there was some comfort in knowing that like this is a process, as you said. I think another interesting thing that you kind of touched upon, I tried to start reframing my thinking around education, not towards like building towards a degree, but maybe building skill sets. And I found like this was really helpful for me to kind of break away from like this degree leads to this place.
Sure.
But I found like when I talked to a lot of my friends, that sometimes was like a very hard concept to break away from. Is that something like you've kind of also found in your position?
And what you're describing is really so reframing and prototyping and those sorts of activities. You're really describing life design. You're describing the type of work that we do in our office. We use a life design framework to assist students in building forward, in developing the types of skills and the types of activities they need to build a meaningful career. And life design comes out of Stanford University. So there are a couple of designers at Stanford, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, who were Silicon Valley designers, who thought, you know what, this process of design, of prototyping, of trying things out, of trying out a product to see if it works, and those sorts of things, and experimenting and ideating and all of those really great things around design, that would be a really great way for students or anybody, quite honestly, to design their careers, to think about their careers, and think about trying things out and those sorts of things. So the very word that you chose in saying reframing, it's exactly what we are working with students and getting them to think more broadly about their careers and their degrees as well. I mean, there are always going to be straight lines, right? Medical, lawyers, all those sorts of things. But what we know is that only about 20 to 23% of jobs in the country are regulated, in that you have to have a specific degree. That leaves a whole swath of jobs that do not require a specific degree. And so that, again, as I said before, that can either be exciting for some people or can be kind of scary, but I think it's kind of exciting. The other thing that we know, and I think COVID has certainly brought lots of attention to this, the job market's pretty fragile. The job market and careers are morphing and changing all the time. We're in a disruptive time in terms of career, and I'm not just talking about the pandemic, but I'm also talking about AI and all of those sorts of things. And so any transferable skills that you have in your toolbox, you can draw from that undergraduate degree or that graduate degree that you have are going to be useful for you in terms of moving forward, because job titles, jobs are changing constantly. And so it's said that, you know, for the students starting a 4-year degree today, the job they might do 4 years down the road doesn't exist yet. And it's absolutely true, because things are in such a state of flux.
That's interesting that you mentioned about like career design, choosing kind of like things to try out. I'm curious, like how do you choose exactly like what you want to try out? Because like the process takes time, and I'm assuming like you don't have time to like try out every single thing, right?
No, absolutely. And you know, it is a process, as has already been mentioned. And so, you know, having conversations with people who work in different areas, having those kinds of prototype conversations about, you know, what they do, what is it like to work in this field? Maybe you job shadow for a day. Those are always really great ways to get information. And that's really what you're looking for, is information. You need information to be able to make some decisions, to be able to help you moving forward. And so how do you get that information? It's out there. You just have to reach out to get it. So those kinds of conversations, internships are a really great way to get experience, whether that be, you know, a summer internship or a longer internship. And by the way, you know, sometimes people be in an internship and realize, yeah, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be. It's not really for me. That's not a waste of time. That's actually really good information, because now you know where you don't want to go. And so sometimes that can be as useful for you as knowing where you want to go. I often will talk to students and suggest that if you're not really sure what you want to do, think about all the things you wouldn't want to do first. Let's eliminate that. Let's get rid of all those things that you're not interested in, because that starts to narrow things down as well. The other piece that we get students to think about is about challenges rather than job titles. So what would you like to do in a career? What do you think you'd like to do that would be meaningful for you? Rather than what job titles are interesting, what challenges are interesting for you? And reframing in that way also can help people begin to prototype toward a career that's fulfilling for them.
So I think one thing you said a little while back, you mentioned like you didn't really know that you were going to be very passionate about working in the higher education space. I guess like a lot of students were kind of wondering, well, one, how do you find a meaningful life and career? And I guess as part of that, what is like how did you identify that you were passionate? Like, what does that look like day to day, or I guess in the larger scheme of you figuring that out?
So I think a lot of the activities that I've been talking about help students kind of move forward toward what they might find as people describe as their passion. But what does that look like is a really good question, because how do you know when you've kind of landed in that sweet spot, I guess, as you would. And you kind of know it's kind of in your guts, right? You just know when you are doing something that is a good fit, that's meaningful to you. I can say in terms of the work that I do here at Western, it's always interesting. It's varied. I draw on lots of different strengths, lots of different areas that I enjoy doing. You know, I don't dread going to work every day. at all. I actually look forward to it. And you know, I've had jobs that I've disliked. I've had jobs that have not been brought me that kind of meaning, that kind of pleasure. And so you kind of get to know the difference between those things. You start to recognize what is bringing me meaning, what is bringing me joy, what kinds of things are kind of clicking into place for me in terms of a career that I'm passionate about, as opposed to those things that don't work for me. I think, you know, doing lots of reflecting and lots of experimentation in terms of career is helpful for students to figure that out. You know, I'm coming at it from a few years out of university, and so I've got some time to look back on and think, okay, I know the difference. Somebody who's just starting out might not recognize that. But you know, if you get into a career or job and it's not working for you, well, that's okay, because you can reset. You can explore other things. You don't have to stick with a job or career that makes you miserable. One of the other pieces that I spend more time, I think, talking with students about meaningful careers rather than careers that are going to make me lots of money. And you know, there are those people out there, clearly. I'm just not seeing them. I think the type of student that I see are the types of students that are really looking for meaningful, and wanting to give back and wanting to feel like they make a difference.
So I guess that is a kind of concept that, like, I usually played into more. I want to do something meaningful and not necessarily like care about the money. But I guess over the last few years, my uncle, he was kind of talking to me about this, and what he mentioned was it might be a good thought process, but maybe it's better you kind of get yourself settled down first into a well-paying job, and that would provide you the mental space and capacity to do things that you find meaningful. So do you have any like comments on like, I guess the opposite side of this?
Well, I guess my challenge is, why does it have to be one or the other? My challenge here, I think, would be, I don't think you have to settle. I think that you can find both. And you know, trust me, I get that we want to be well paid for what we do. That's not, I'm not denying that element. But I think, you know, because what my caution is, so you settle into a career that you're kind of okay with. You're not thrilled to be there, but the money's good. And 2 years pass, and 5 years pass, and pretty soon it's 15 years in, and you're thinking, why am I doing this? This is not for me. This doesn't work for me. Why didn't I take a different direction? Now, I would suggest that you still can. I mean, it's not impossible to do that. And that's the great thing about life design in this model, is that you can make those types of changes at any point in your career. And the other piece that I think is important for people graduating university now and people who are in their early 20s to recognize is that, and for universities to recognize, is that you're not preparing yourself for a 30 or 40-year career. You're preparing yourself for much longer careers, because people live longer and have longer lives than ever before and work longer. People work further into their later years than they ever have in the past. And that's not always by choice, but oftentimes it is by choice. And so the idea that I'm going to get this job and I'm going to do it for 35 years and then retire probably is not going to happen for a lot of people. a lot of people are going to have multiple careers. And this is the other piece, I think, that is important to remember. People have more than one career in their lifetime. You're going to be changing and taking a different direction all the way through, because those sorts of things just happen. Because, as I said before, there is so much change and variation within the world of work, so much disruption, that you can't help but need to be able to be ready to make those sorts of changes, as we've said all through COVID, right? To pivot, because this has kind of become the buzzword, but it's true. I mean, it really is true. You do, in certain terms of my own career path, I've worked in lots of different areas within the not-for-profit sector, and I draw from all of those different areas in my role now, and so it's all been worthwhile. And it's just part of that career path that you'll have for yourself.
I think a really hard part of it though is like, especially when you settle into a job that you said is like well paying and stuff, to leave that to find like a more meaningful career. I think there's a lot of like uncertainty that comes with it and a lot of like unknowns. So are there any ways to like ease that kind of feeling or be okay with that uncertainty?
And we talk about this as discomfort, right? Sometimes you just have to sit in that discomfort. Sometimes, is there a way to navigate that? I think sometimes you just need to be there and experience it and understand that this is temporary, and that yeah, this is an uncomfortable position for me to be in right now, but eventually I'm going to get to a better place. Sometimes those transitions can be difficult. Or, I mean, and I mean, lots of people don't make those changes for themselves. They stay in the position, they stay in those careers that are not making them happy. And that's fine for those folk that do that. I can't imagine being in a job that I hate for 15 or 20 years. I would want to get out and find something more meaningful. And find something more meaningful doesn't mean sacrificing income either. There's this whole idea around, well, I can't have both. I would challenge that. I think you certainly can have both. And so, it's just like I say, it's a matter of prototyping. It's a matter of experimenting and finding the right fit for yourself.
I actually want to add a similar question to Zainab, and I guess like there is like definitely the mental aspect of overcoming that discomfort and kind of pushing the boundaries of what you're okay with when you are trying to change like paths. I wonder, do you have any like advice in terms of like one thing I could think of is like maybe preparing a fund to kind of create a buffer room as you're transitioning careers. Is there any other kind of like tangible advice, I guess, outside of like dealing with your mental space?
Yeah, there's lots of strategies, Kevin, for helping to prepare yourself for those transitions, and taking, the very first thing you need to be doing is having conversations with people, and reaching out to people and getting a sense of, does this make sense to you? Knowing yourself is hugely important. We have an exercise, there is an exercise rather in life design called the worldview workview. And this exercise has you write out in 250 words your worldview. So what does it mean? It's the big existential questions, right? What does a good life mean to you? What does that look like? What brings you meaning? And then a work view, which is really around what does, at the end of the day, what does meaningful work mean to you? and what does work mean? Is it about making money? Is it about meaning? What are all those sorts of things mean? And then we have people compare those two things and see if there's any kind of dissonance between those two things. And if there is, then maybe it's worth exploring, what am I doing and what can I do differently? So lots of exercises and things that people can do to try to help with that transition. And sometimes it's not a major transition, quite honestly. Sometimes it's just a shift in how you do your work, and how you interact with people in your work environment, and maybe some changes within your job itself. Maybe that's all it takes. Then other times it might be, no, you know what, I need to move on to something else. There are lots of ways of approaching that.
That's a good point, because I guess when we're discussing this, it seems like the focus, like as I'm thinking of it, the focus seems to be on the career, but I guess like what you're really trying to evaluate is how you are feeling, and using that metric to determine like, well, maybe I can just make changes within my job first. Maybe that will be enough. And that creates a good enough like change in my like thinking and how I feel about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, we're talking about building a meaningful life and career, right? It's
Right.
not just, it's about the whole package. You want to look at all aspects of that, which is why we talk about worldview and work view and those sorts of elements as well.
And just to scale back a little bit, a lot of like undergraduate students like myself, in like a general kind of degree, often wonder like, is it normal to not know like pretty much anything about what you're doing at this time?
We need your words of comfort here.
Is this okay?
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you because it is the kind of question that comes up quite often, right? Well, shouldn't I have it figured out by now? Or I mean, the questions come in a number of ways. All of my friends seem to know what they want to do, but I don't know what I want to do. Well, stop comparing yourself to your friends. You're your own person, right? So there's that. I'm in biology. I'm in my third year, but I think I only took it because I was really good in high school, and I'm not really sure this is where I want to be or this is what I want to do. That's okay. You don't have to have it figured out yet. You've got some time to figure some things out. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to make these decisions that, okay, it's my first year of university. I have to pick a major. Okay, no, I have to stick with that major, and this is a career I'm going to do, and this is where I'm going to go. I can tell you that as an undergraduate, I probably changed track 3 or 4 times before I finally settled in on English. And every time was a crisis, of course, because you think, oh my God, I thought I knew what I was going to do, and now I don't know what I'm going to do. And I mean, I had moments of, yeah, I'm just going to drop out because I'm not going to finish this degree and all those sorts of things. I understand that feeling. And that's why our department exists, is to help people navigate some of those questions. And so the career education department is really there. And all of us in student experience are there to kind of sort of be supportive and to help navigate through some of those questions and some of those concerns that people have.
Would you say that it's better to like stick with it, kind of get the degree and then kind of change paths, or change the degree itself? If that makes sense.
I don't think there's an either or on that. Okay. I think that is really individual, right? That's something that one is better than the other. I think they're both options that people contemplate. It isn't cookie cutter. It isn't one size fits all. It'd be easy, right? My job would be so easy if I just had a flow chart and I go, yep, you're here, and so this is where you go now, and then yeah, your next step is this step. Not at all. Everybody is different. Everybody has different concerns, different stressors in their life, different things that they want to accomplish, and so yeah, it really becomes individual.
I personally didn't even know we had this department at Western. So I guess one thing maybe we can touch on to wrap up the episode is if students want to get some help and get some guidance, how do they do that?
So, and I'm glad that you know about us now, Kevin. We are in room 210 in UCC. Of course, we've been virtual off and on for most of the last couple of years, although we are returning to our offices on Monday. So you can do one-on-one appointments with us, either virtually or in person. That's your choice. We recognize that not everybody is comfortable yet meeting in person. And so we have career coaches in our department that can meet with you and talk about anything and everything related to career, and all of these questions that we've been talking about are questions that I field and we field every day in our offices. We also have a series of workshops that we offer on everything from career design to job search strategies to LinkedIn, etc. Those are all available. You can sign up for those through Connect. And so, yeah, we love to see people. So don't be shy about being in touch with us.
Yeah, I think I will definitely have to reach out. This was a wonderful talk, and yeah, thank you so much for shedding light on a topic that I think is on the mind of like every student, a very stressful topic, but yeah, hopefully this brings some comfort to all of our viewers.
Thank you so much for your time, David. Is there a
You're welcome.
concluding message you would like to tell the audience?
There is, you know what, it's funny you say that. I came across a line last summer that I tried to get out to in all of my workshops. And that line is, your impact is inevitable. Right? Let me repeat that. Your impact is inevitable. So keep that in mind.